My name is Vesta Spear. I'm 37 years old. At Easter dinner, my mother slid a folded page across the table and said, loud enough for 13 relatives to hear, 12,000, Brooks rent Colton's truck. You have no kids, so your money has no purpose. Stop being selfish and pay. The room went still. Every face waited for me to fight or cry. I did neither. I paid every dollar while the coffee cooled. Then I tore a page from my notebook, wrote 5 short sentences, and asked all 4 of them to sign. My mother smirked as her pen moved. My brother signed without reading. My father never looked up. My sister read it twice. Her face drained of color. She leaned close and whispered, "Mom." She set us up. That was the last time this family got to decide what my silence meant. What those 4 signatures started that night didn't just end the bill. It ended the story my mother had been telling about me for years, and she couldn't take it back. Welcome to Revenge Episodes, where we sit with the quiet moments that finally break a family's grip and the women who stop carrying it. If this already feels familiar, drop a comment and subscribe. Because what happened in the 6 weeks after that Easter table taught me something I wish someone had told me at 20. The person who keeps the ledger is never the one who gets to write the ending. I have worked freight for 11 years. Falls City Freight, on the west end of Louisville, 3rd door past the fuel island. My shift starts at 5 in the morning, when the lot is still dark and the drivers are still human with each other. I sit in front of 3 screens, and I know where things are. A pallet of ceiling tile in Bowling Green. A refrigerated load that left Indianapolis late and will cost somebody money at the far end. 11 years in freight teaches you one thing. Nothing disappears. It just gets signed for by somebody else. I was good at it. I was calm on the phone when a driver was not. I could look at a delivery that had gone wrong and see the exact hour it started going wrong, usually 2 days before anyone noticed. My supervisor once told me I had the temperament of a hospital nurse and the memory of an accountant. And he meant it as a compliment. And I took it as one. What I could not see, for a long time, was my own family from the outside. I lived alone in a 1-bedroom in Germantown, in an old shotgun house that had been split in 2 sometime in the 70s. The floors sloped toward the kitchen. In winter, the radiator knocked twice before it warmed up. It was mine, in the way a rented thing can be yours. And I liked coming home to a room where nobody needed anything from me. In the closet, on the shelf above my work boots, there was a teal envelope with one word written on it in marker, Doolin. Under the word I had written a note to myself, and the note was not gentle. Don't touch. Not even for family. Especially not for family. I put $590 in that envelope on the 1st of every month, starting in September of 2024. 3 weeks in Ireland, a cottage on the coast road in Doolin, County Clare, and a landscape photography workshop with 11 other people and a woman who had shot for magazines I had read in dentists' offices. I am not an artist. I take pictures of loading docks at dawn because the light is good, and nobody else thinks so. But I wanted, one time in my life, to stand somewhere with a camera and have that be the entire reason I was there. The idea came from a postcard. Grant gave it to me the first year we were together, a photograph of black cliffs with the sea coming apart at the bottom of them. He said we would go. We got engaged in the fall of 2022, and it ended in November of 2023. And the honest version is that he got tired of watching me leave dinners early because my mother had called. He kept the ring. I kept the postcard. I think we both got what we wanted. That trip had been postponed 3 times. In 2021, when Colton let his car insurance lapse and then backed into a mailbox and a parked van in the same week. In 2022, when Brooke needed movers and a deposit and a bed frame, and my mother told me on the phone that a sister with a spare room in her budget shouldn't make her sister ask twice. In 2024, when the roof on my parents' house started letting water into the hallway. The estimate came to $3,300. My father said nothing at all while my mother explained why it had to be me. That last time, my mother said something I did not think about again for 2 years. Ireland will still be there next year, honey. Your family might not. I booked it anyway in December of 2025. Flight out of Louisville on Sunday, May 17th, with a connection through Chicago. The workshop held my spot with a deposit, and their cancellation window closed on April 30th, and my travel insurance had the same date on it. I wrote May 17th on the kitchen calendar in blue pen, and then I stood there for a second, looking at it, feeling something close to fear. This year, my family also thought Ireland could wait. They just didn't know I had stopped waiting. To understand what happened at that table, you have to understand how my family was organized. Not loved. Organized. My mother, Darlene, is 64. She has never held a paying job, and she has never needed one because she runs something more valuable than a business. She runs the story. She is the one who knows which cousin is between apartments, which nephew is drinking again, whose surgery went badly and whose marriage is quietly finished. She started the family group chat herself, back when we all got smartphones, and she named it Spear Family Table. 23 people in it. If a Spear got engaged, or laid off, or diagnosed, my mother knew first and everyone else knew second. In her words, in her order. She said the same thing at every holiday, in the same warm voice, like a blessing. As long as we all tell the same story, we're fine. My father, Wendell, is 67. He was a machinist for 31 years and retired in 2022, and since then he has lived mostly in the garage. He buys old riding mowers for almost nothing, takes them apart on a piece of cardboard, and sells them running. He is not a cruel man. In 43 years of marriage, I have never heard him raise his voice to my mother, and I have also never heard him stop her. My sister Brooke is 41. She got divorced in 2019. Her son Tanner is 20 now and sells cars in Lexington and comes home for holidays with his shirt tucked in. Brooke worked at a flower shop on Poplar Level Road for 9 years. In November of 2025, the owner retired and closed it, and my sister went from 32 hours a week to nothing in a month. In January, she got on at a grocery store floral counter for fewer hours and less money. In our family, she has always been described the same way, in a tone people use for weather. Brooke is fragile. Brooke can't handle much. My brother, Colton, is 33. He does temp work at the warehouses out by Riverport, loading trailers when the season is good and not loading them when it isn't. He lives with his girlfriend Shelby and her little boy. In 2023, he bought a used truck at a lot that would finance anyone, at a rate I still don't like to think about. The payment came to $680 a month. That was more than his rent had been the year before. For 10 years, my mother has described him with the same phrase. Colton's about to get settled. And me? I was the one who could. That is not a complaint about how I was raised. It is a description of a job I accepted without ever being handed it. I went back through my transfer history once, on a Sunday, because I wanted to know the real number. Not the number my mother would have said. The real one. $1,900 in 2019 for Brooke's apartment deposit after the divorce. $600 in 2020 for Colton's tools. $1,900 in 2021. Insurance and a deductible. $2,600 in 2022 when my parents' furnace quit in February. $1,650 in 2023 when Brooke went to the emergency room with chest pain that turned out to be a panic attack, which does not make the bill smaller. $3,300 in 2024 for the roof. Another $3,850 across 2025 in pieces small enough that I never wrote them down anywhere but the app. $15,800. The thing that stopped me, reading it, was not the total. It was the note I had typed on the furnace transfer 4 years earlier in the little memo line. For Mom and Dad's furnace. Don't tell them it was me. V. I did that a lot. I sent money and asked my mother not to say where it came from because I thought that was kindness. I thought it spared my parents the embarrassment of being helped by their middle child. I thought silence was a kind of manners. My mother treated it as raw material. In late March, my father left me a voicemail. 19 seconds. I know because I played it 3 times. It's Dad. Easter's at the house. Your mother's. She's planning something. Just come with an open mind, all right? Behind his voice, I could hear a mower running. My father had never called me before a meal, not once in 37 years. On Sunday, March 22nd, 2 weeks before Easter, my Aunt Rosalie called me after church. Rosalie is my mother's younger sister. She's 59, widowed since 2018, and she lives in Elizabethtown, about 45 minutes south on the interstate. She keeps the books for the women's group at her church, which is a detail I would not have thought mattered. I was at my kitchen table with a pay stub in front of me when she called. She asked how work was. She asked if I was eating. Then her voice changed into the voice people use at funerals, and she said the sentence that took the floor out from under me. Honey, everyone hits hard times. Your mom has been carrying you for years. That's what mothers do. Carrying me. I looked at the pay stub under my hand. $74,000 a year. Direct deposit. 11 years. No gaps. I had bought my parents a furnace. I had bought my sister a bed. Here is where I found out something about myself. I did not correct her. In my job, when a load goes missing, the worst thing you can do is start shouting into the phone before you know where the truck is. You ask short questions and you let people talk. So I asked 3. How long has Mom been telling you that? Rosalie said it had been a while now. Since the engagement, at least. Maybe before. Who else has she told? Rosalie said, in the gentlest voice, that nobody thought less of me. That Merle and Nadine understood. That the whole family understood. And I shouldn't be embarrassed. And pride was the only thing that ever really hurt anybody. I'm fine, though. You know that, right? And my aunt said, Of course, honey. In the way you say it to somebody who is not fine. I understood then what I was up against. She had been told a story about me so many times that my own voice couldn't reach past it. I got off the phone. I sat there until the pay stub got soft along the edge where my thumb kept moving. My aunt thought she was comforting me. What she had actually done was hand me the first tracking number. That night, I opened Spear Family Table and scrolled back 3 years. In the main chat, my mother was careful. She never said my name next to a $sign. What she posted were prayers. Hard month for our family again. God provides. Please keep our family in your prayers this week. 23 people. Birthdays, obituaries, a photo of Jonelle's ring when Travis proposed, the church directory photo of my grandmother that my mother reposts every year on the anniversary of her death. Hundreds of messages, and in all of them my mother spoke about hardship the way a weather report speaks about rain. General, blameless, constant. Whatever the darker version was, it wasn't in the room I was standing in. I was still scrolling at 1 a.m. when my cousin Janelle texted me. Hey, check your DMs. There's something you need to see. Janelle is 28. She's Merle and Nadine's daughter, engaged to a decent man named Travis, and she is the only person in my family who has ever apologized to me for something that wasn't her fault. What she sent me were screenshots from a group chat I had never been in. It had a name at the top. Prayer chain. The women of the family, the aunts, and the older cousins. My mother in the middle of it. The first screenshot was from a Tuesday in February. Keeping V afloat again this month. Don't mention it to her. She's proud. The second was from the previous fall. Pray for our Vesta. Still lost since the engagement fell apart. She won't take advice from me, but she'll take help. Jonelle had circled 7 words in red with her finger before she sent it. Don't mention it to her. She's proud. Under the screenshots she wrote, I thought you knew. Everybody thought you knew. 7 words. That was the whole machine. 7 words explained why, for 3 years, not one person in my family had ever asked me a single question about money. Not one. Not a cousin at a cookout. Not an aunt in a church parking lot. They weren't ignoring me. They had been given instructions. I sat with my phone in both hands and did the thing I always do, which is to imagine the simple version first. I could call Rosalie back in the morning. I could say, my mother is lying to you. I could say, I'm not broke. I've never been broke. I paid for the roof over her head. And I knew exactly what would happen, because I had watched it happen to my father for 20 years. My mother would not argue with me. She would be sad about me. She would call 3 people before lunch and say, in that soft voice, that I had gotten worse, that the trip abroad was a symptom, that she had been protecting my dignity for years and now I was turning on her. And could you blame a mother for being tired? One daughter's word against the woman who tells the family what is true. I would not be a person with a grievance. I would be the 3rd version of a story that already had 2. I needed something that could not be argued with. Not my word. Theirs. The next week I did quiet work. I printed my transfer history. All 6 years of it. I printed Janelle's screenshots. I laid them side by side on my kitchen table, and for the first time in a long time I cried, 4 or 5 breaths of it. Then I stopped and got a pen. Across the top of the printed page I wrote, same years, same family, 2 stories. Only one has signatures. That was the moment the shape of it arrived. Not a plan yet. A rule. On Saturday, the 4th of April, the day before Easter, I stopped at the drugstore on Goss Avenue and bought a spiral notebook for $3.99. I put it in my purse with a ballpoint pen. I wasn't rehearsing anything. I had 3 rules, and that was all I had. Pay the creditor, not the family. Put it in writing. Let everyone see it at the same time. I thought the number the next day might be $2,000. Maybe 3. It was bigger than that. Much bigger. Easter was at my parents' house in Fern Creek, 25 minutes from my place, if the lights are kind. There were 14 of us. My parents, Brooke and Tanner, Colton, Shelby, and Shelby's little boy in a booster seat at the corner, Aunt Rosalie, my Uncle Merle and my Aunt Nadine, Jonelle and Travis, and my great-aunt Verna, who is 81 and deaf in one ear, and who spent most of the meal asking Travis to repeat himself. 13 relatives, and me. My mother made the ham with the honey glaze she is known for. There were scalloped potatoes and a basket of dyed eggs that Jonelle had done with her nieces. My mother was in a good mood, brighter than usual, refilling glasses before they were empty. I was seated where I am always seated, in the chair nearest the kitchen doorway, so I could get up for the rolls. When everyone sat down, she raised her tea, like it was something stronger. It's so good to have everybody at one table, she said. One family, one table, one story. My mother only gets that sweet when she's about to collect. Dessert came out at 2:15. Coconut cake, and my father's coffee, and the sound of a dozen forks. Then my mother took a folded page out of the pocket of her cardigan and slid it across the table to me. Her handwriting is round and tidy, the kind they taught in the 60s. 4 lines. Brooke's rent, 4 months, $5,600. Late fees, $800. Colton's truck loan, $4,400, which she had written as one number with the fees folded in. Transmission, $1,200. At the bottom, underlined twice, $12,000. We've talked it over as a family, she said. I looked around that table and understood that the word, we did not include me. And then she said the thing that turned my stomach cold. because it changed the date on everything. I already gave Earl my word. It'd be settled by Monday. Earl Dobbins is my sister's landlord. He is 71 years old and owns 6 rentals out around Okolona, and I had never met him in my life. In the first week of March, he had put a notice on Brooke's door, the 7-day kind, pay or go. My mother had called him. My mother had told a stranger in the first week of March that the family would take care of it by the 6th of April. 5 weeks earlier, she had promised a man I'd never met that I would pay. I heard myself ask one question, and it came out flat. Why me? And my mother said it, in her clear church voice, to 13 relatives and a toddler. 12,000, Brooke's rent, Colton's truck. You have no kids, so your money has no purpose. Stop being selfish and pay. I want to be accurate about what happened next, because it is the part I think about most. Brooke looked at her plate. Colton made a sound like a laugh and reached for the cake stand. My Uncle Merle said something about the rain moving in. My Aunt Rosalie opened her mouth, and I watched her decide not to, and close it. My father turned his coffee cup a quarter turn, and then another quarter turn, and did not look up. Shelby's little boy banged a spoon against his tray. He was the only one in that room who didn't go quiet. Nobody said a word for me. 14 people at a table, and not one of them said, "That's not fair," or, "Darlene, that's enough." I set my fork down. "Okay," I said. That word did more damage than any speech I could have made. They were braced for tears, or for a scene. Nobody in that house had ever prepared for a flat yes. My mother blinked, and then her face settled into something satisfied, and she started to say that she knew I'd come around. "Okay," I said again. "Give me the landlord's portal and the loan account number. I'll pay them directly, right now." Brooke fumbled through her phone for Earl Dobbins's information. Colton had to call Shelby's name across the table and ask her to find the finance company's paperwork in the glove box of her car. Pay them directly, right now. My mother had no idea yet why those 5 words were a problem for her. It took about 20 minutes. Earl Dobbins had an online portal his son had set up for him. I put in the account number. Brooke read off her phone. I paid the balance and the late fees out of my savings by bank transfer, $6,400. Then I turned my screen around so the table could see the confirmation, green checkmark, receipt number, my name on it. Heritage Auto Finance has an automated line that runs on holidays. I put it on speaker in the middle of the dishes. We all sat there and listened to a recorded woman ask for the last 4 of the account, and Colton said them out loud, and then the recorded woman said it. Your payment of $4,400 has been accepted. Account status, current. The garage was closed for Easter. Stubbs' transmission had been holding Colton's truck since January because nobody had paid for the work, which is the only reason the finance company hadn't come for it months ago. I scheduled the transfer for 8 the next morning and showed that screen around too. $12,000 gone in front of 13 witnesses. My mother was glowing. She thought she had won something. I took the notebook out of my purse and tore out a page along the spiral, so the edge came away ragged. I wrote 5 sentences with everyone watching, and when I was done, I read them out loud, slowly, so that nobody could later say they hadn't heard. Today is April 5th, 2026. Vesta paid $12,000 of this family's debts. Brooke's rent and late fees are paid in full. Colton's truck loan and repair are paid in full. We 4 confirm she paid it, and we agree this is the last time. What is that? My mother said. It's not a contract, I said. It's just the truth, in writing for once. I slid it to her with the pen on top. She signed first. She was smiling while she did it, and she said, without looking up, "If a piece of paper makes you feel important, sweetheart." Colton signed second. He didn't read a word of it. He drew a little smiley face next to his name because he thought the whole thing was funny. My father signed third. He took longer than the other two. He never lifted his eyes off the paper, and when he set the pen down, he pushed it away from himself with one finger. Brooke signed last. She read it once, then she read it again, and her hand stopped over the last line, the one that said, "This is the last time." And she looked at it the way you look at a word in a language you almost know. Then she signed. 4 names. 13 witnesses. I picked the page up, held it flat against the table with my fingers at the corners, and took a photograph of it with my phone. Then I opened Spear Family Table, and I sent the picture to 23 people with one line under it. So everyone finally has the same story. 3 seconds later, a phone buzzed on the sideboard. Then Nadine's, in her purse. Then Travis's, face up next to his plate. Then Verna's, loud, because hers is turned all the way up. It went around that table like something falling. Brooke got to hers first. She read it, and I watched her put 2 things together, because Brooke is in the church women's chat and has been hearing prayers for me for 3 years. The color went out of her face. She turned. Not to me. To our mother. And she leaned in and whispered, "Mom, she set us up." My sister was wrong about one thing. I didn't set anybody up. I turned on a light. The typing bubbles started before anyone at that table had said a word out loud. My Aunt Nadine typed something. I saw it come through and I read it twice, standing there with my coat still on the back of the chair. Wait. Vesta paid? Darlene, you told us. It stopped mid-sentence. 20 seconds later, it was gone, and where it had been, there was a gray line that said Nadine deleted a message. Uncle Merle sent a single question mark. Rosalie put a heart on the photograph, and then said nothing at all, which from Rosalie is the loudest thing there is. And Travis, who had been in this family for 11 months and knew none of the rules, typed the question everyone else was too well trained to ask. Wait, I thought Vesta was the one having a hard time. My mother stood up so fast her chair skidded. Take it down, she said. Right now. This is private family business. I put my coat on. It was private until you told your version, Mom. She said my name. She said it twice. She said something about the Lord's Day and something about humiliating her in her own house, and I remember noticing that not once did she say the paper was wrong. I left through the kitchen. For 20 years, I had been sitting in the chair by that doorway so I could get up for the rolls. I walked past it in the middle of a meal for the first time in my life. My father was still looking at the page on the table. A deleted message says more than every message that gets sent. I drove home in silence. My phone did not stop for 2 hours. If you have ever been the one your family calls when the bill comes due, tell me in the comments. Has your family ever run 2 versions of the same story? And which one were you living in? Because what my aunt said to me the next morning took away the last version I had left. At 2 minutes past 11 that night, a text came in from Rosalie. Call me tomorrow, before your mother does. In my family, whoever calls first gets believed. My aunt knew that rule better than anyone. Monday morning, there were 6 missed calls before 9 o'clock, all from the same name. I listened to the voicemail standing in the yard at work in my safety vest, with a yard hostler backing a trailer 40 feet behind me. The first one was anger. You humiliated this family on the Lord's Day, Vesta. I hope that paper was worth it. The second one, 2 hours later, was hurt. She was crying in it. She said she had not slept. She said she did not know what she had done to deserve a daughter who would do that in front of Aunt Verna. The third one was a deal. If I would take the picture down and tell everyone it had been a misunderstanding, we could put it behind us and nobody had to keep talking about it. 3 different women in one morning, and all 3 of them wanted the same thing, which was the photograph. By that afternoon, she stopped calling me. She started calling everyone else. I know what she said because it came back to me the way things always come back in a family that size. A cousin I barely talked to called on Wednesday to check on my mental health. She was kind about it. She said Aunt Darlene had told her I hadn't been myself since the engagement ended, that I had been struggling for a while, that the scene at Easter was probably about Grant, not about money, and that if I needed somebody to talk to, she was there. That was the moment I understood what I was actually up against. My mother was not going to argue about the $12,000. She was going to make me the kind of person who says things like that. She didn't apologize. She wrote me a diagnosis. Colton texted me Tuesday night. Hope you're happy. You turned Easter into a show. Mom cried all night. Brooke said nothing. Not on Monday, not Tuesday, not the rest of that week. Her name sat in my phone with white space under it, and out of everyone in my family, that silence was the one I couldn't read. Rosalie put me off twice. Each time she apologized and said she'd call me back, and each time she mentioned, without meaning to, that my mother had just been on the phone with her for an hour. My mother was going house to house, patching. Friday, my aunt finally texted me a place instead of a time. Not on the phone, honey. Sit down with me Saturday. You'll want to be sitting. She sent the pin for a pancake place in Elizabethtown, 45 minutes south on the interstate. At that point, it was the longest drive of my life. Flapjacks is one of those places with laminated menus and coffee that never gets past warm. My aunt was already in a booth by the window when I got there on Saturday, the 11th of April, and she had a tin box on the table in front of her. It was an old offering box, the kind churches used to hand out, with a painting of a white chapel on the lid and the paint worn off at the corners. Inside were church envelopes, dozens of them, and a small notebook with a rubber band around it. She didn't ease into it. Honey, she said, I've been paying your bills for 3 years. Or so I thought. She opened the notebook. Rosalie has the handwriting of a woman who has kept somebody's books for 30 years, small and slanted and even. Every line was a date, an amount, and 2 words. For Vesta. $100 a month since the spring of 2023. Extra at Christmas, extra at Easter. $150 the month she got her tax refund. $5,200. She gave every dollar of it to my mother. Then she told me she wasn't the only one. Merle and Nadine had been giving my mother $800 a year, 3 years running by check. Rosalie had a photocopy of one of them because she'd been at the kitchen table when Nadine wrote it. Made out to Darlene Spear and Jonelle. My cousin Jonelle, who is 28 and getting married and works at a dental office, had taken $1,300 out of her own wedding account in the fall of 2025 because her mother told her that her cousin Vesta was drowning. $8,900. Not $1 of it ever reached me. Not one. I sat in that booth with a plate of pancakes going cold in front of me and asked my aunt the only question that mattered, which was how nobody had ever said anything to me. Not at a funeral, not at a cookout, not once in 3 years. Rosalie's eyes went red at the edges. Your mama said, she's proud. Never bring it up. 7 words. Nobody ever checked. 7 words. And a whole family looked away from me while handing money to the person who was already taking it. I want to be honest about what I felt, because it wasn't rage. Rage is clean. What I felt was closer to being sick. My mother had not just used me. She had used the best thing in these people. Rosalie lives on a pension and gave $100 a month to a lie. Janelle delayed a wedding for one. Everything in me wanted to photograph that notebook and put it in the group chat that night. I didn't. Not yet, Aunt Ro, I said. When this comes out, it comes out once, and it comes out whole, because her notebook proved where the money left from. It did not prove where it landed, and it did not prove who else in that house had known. That was the question that had started to keep me up. $8,900. And the one that hurt worse. Was anybody in my family in on it? My aunt let me take pictures of every page, Then she put her hand flat on the lid of the tin box, the way she'd put it on a Bible, and lowered her voice. "There's something else, honey. Colton was in that kitchen at Thanksgiving. He heard all of it." I waited for my brother in the lot at Riverport on a Tuesday, at shift change, under the lights that make everybody look tired. Colton came out with 2 other guys and stopped when he saw my car. He didn't have his truck. It was still sitting at the garage, and he'd been riding in with somebody from his crew for months. I told him what Rosalie told me. Thanksgiving. The kitchen. Our mother on the phone with Nadine. Doing the voice. Poor Vesta. She won't take help. We do what we can. And the check for his truck payment lying on the counter next to the sink while she said it. He didn't deny it. That's the part I keep coming back to. He didn't even look surprised that I knew. He shrugged. "What was I supposed to do?" he said. "Give the money back?" "It was already spent, V." I asked him if he ever thought about calling me. He said that Mom handles all that. He said it the way you'd say the mail comes on Saturdays. I didn't lose my brother in that parking lot. I found out I had lost him 5 months earlier, standing in our mother's kitchen, next to a check with his name on it. 3 nights later, Brooke knocked on my door. It was almost 10. She had her keys in her hand, and she kept them there the whole time, closed in her fist, like a person who might need to run. She had gone to Jonelle herself. She had seen the screenshots. She had done the math with her own bank statements and her own memory, and she had come to my apartment to say it out loud in her own words. She told me about Easter. After I left, she went into our mother's bathroom and threw up. 4 months, she said. 4 months I thought Mom and Dad were covering my rent. She told me they were dipping into savings for me. She told me not to bring it up to you because you'd make it into a thing. Then she said the sentence I have not been able to put down since. "I paid my rent with your reputation, V, and I didn't even know it. I want to be fair to my sister, because she wasn't innocent and she didn't pretend to be. She took the help. She never asked where it came from. In April, she'd covered her own rent with her tax refund and some extra hours, which is the only reason the bill at Easter stopped at March. She could have asked in December. She didn't, because asking would have meant knowing. She asked me what she should do, whether she should pay me back, whether she should call Rosalie, whether she should scream at our mother. I didn't want any of it. "Tell the truth," I said. Once. Out loud. In front of them. Brooke started to answer, and both our phones went off at the same time on my kitchen table. Spear family table. My mother. Family. Dinner, May 9th, to clear the air. Everyone comes. We are still a family. My mother had picked her own house, her own table, her own rules. She had forgotten that a witness is something you can bring with you. The last 2 weeks of April were the hardest part, and nothing happened in them. That's the thing nobody tells you. The worst stretch is not the confrontation. It's the quiet afterward, when the pressure stops being loud and starts being patient. My mother called on a Thursday, and her voice had changed again. It was soft this time, almost tender. She said she'd been thinking, and that she could see how it might have looked from where I was sitting, and that families make mistakes on both sides. Then she made the offer. Delete the photo, apologize to the family, and come home Sunday. That's all it takes to be my daughter again. I was standing at my stove with a pot of soup I was going to eat by myself. I want to tell you, I laughed at her. I didn't. I stood there holding a wooden spoon and felt the offer land exactly where she aimed it, because she was not offering me money, and she was not offering me an apology. She was offering me a seat, Sunday dinner, the chair by the kitchen doorway, being somebody's daughter in a room with other people in it. That's all it takes. The cheapest price in the world and the most expensive thing I have ever been asked to pay. Meanwhile, the family got tired. That's the part that surprised me. Not the anger, the fatigue. 2 or 3 of them moved through outrage in about 10 days and came out the other side wanting it to be over. One cousin left the group chat because of the drama. An aunt by marriage sent me a message that said, "We love you both. Can't we just move on? It's only money." It's only money. She was right. That is exactly why it was never about the money. Jonelle's future mother-in-law asked her at a bridal shower what was going on with her family, and Jonelle called me afterward, embarrassed, apologizing for something that wasn't hers. And on the last day of April, at 1 minute after midnight, an email came in. "Your cancellation window has closed. 50% of the workshop fee, gone if I backed out. The travel insurance, no longer refundable. Whatever happened next, I was going to Ireland on the 17th of May, or I was going to eat that money." I read the email twice, sitting on the edge of my bed at midnight, and I felt something I did not expect. Relief. Somewhere in there, I finally heard my mother's old sentence for what it was. "Ireland will still be there next year. Your family might not." For 2 years, I had taken that as love. It was a threat wearing love's coat. But I want to be honest, because if I only tell you the strong parts, this isn't worth listening to. Late one night that week, I opened Spear Family Table and wrote an apology. A real one. 4 paragraphs. I said I was sorry for the way I had handled Easter. I said I should have spoken to my mother privately. I said family was worth more than being right, and my thumb sat over the send button for a long time. Then I opened my photos and looked at a picture of my aunt's notebook. $100 a month, in small slanted handwriting, from a widow living on a pension. I deleted the message 1 word at a time. I put the phone face down, and somebody knocked on my door. It was 10 at night. It was my father. He was alone. My father would not sit back on the couch. He sat on the front edge of it with his cap in both hands and turned down a glass of water twice. "I'm not here to ask you to forgive her," he said. "I'm here so you know what you're up against." Then he said a name I had not heard since a funeral in 2016. My grandmother, Idelle. In 1970, my mother was 8 years old and she had rheumatic fever. That part is true. She was sick for most of a winter and she missed half a year of school, and my grandmother sat up with her, and all of that is true. What my father told me is what happened after. My grandmother took my mother to 3 different congregations that spring. Not her own church. 3. She stood a pale little girl at the front of a room and let people put money in a basket for a child who might not make it to summer. Then she took what was left over after the doctor and bought a chest freezer and a wool coat. My mother got well. My grandmother kept taking her. Until my mother was 12 years old, she was walked into church halls and told to look weak. My father said my grandmother used to straighten her collar in the car first. "Sit small," she'd say. "Don't look so pink." "Your mother learned young that a sad story pays better than a true one," my father said. I watched it happen, and I kept quiet. That's my part. He told me why he kept quiet, too, and it was worse than cowardice. Every time he'd pushed back in the early years, she rewrote him. Not to his face, to us. She would tell 3 people in a week how difficult he'd been, and by Sunday he'd be the man in the garage who couldn't be talked to, and his own children would look at him that way. So he stopped pushing back, and he stayed in the house, and it cost exactly what you'd expect. There is a chest freezer in my parents' garage. It hums. My father has replaced the compressor on it twice, because that's what he does. He keeps old machines running. I had eaten out of that freezer my whole life. Understanding where my mother came from did not make me forgive her. It made the shape of it clearer and heavier, which are not the same as lighter. Every generation gets a chance to put the thing down. She had that chance for 50 years. I know some of you think I went too far. I know some of you think I didn't go far enough. Hit like if you're still with me, and stay. Because at that dinner on the 9th of May, my mother finally said the one sentence she couldn't take back. Before my father left, he took a Bible out of his jacket. He had carried it in with him, and I hadn't noticed. He opened it in the middle, in the Psalms, and there was the page from my notebook. The ragged edge, the 5 sentences, 4 signatures. It had been crushed into a ball and then flattened out again, so it had a cross of creases through the middle of it where a fist had been. My mother had thrown it in the kitchen trash that night, after I left. She threw it away, my father said. I didn't. Some things, somebody's gotta keep. He pressed it under the bottom tray of his toolbox for a week to get it flat, and then he moved it into the Bible. Then he asked me to come on the 9th. Not for her, he said. So the story has a witness. I said yes. Not to win. So the story would have a witness. Saturday the 9th of May, 9 of us at my mother's table. My parents, Brooke, Colton, Rosalie, Merle and Nadine, Jonelle, me. She had made it look like an occasion. Candles, a roast chicken, cloth napkins folded into triangles. There were index cards next to her plate. And I understood before she said a word that my mother had written herself a speech. I did not sit in the chair by the kitchen doorway. I took the seat at the far end, the one nobody uses because it's too close to the china cabinet. She started before the chicken was cut. She talked about how families have misunderstandings. She talked about how she had prayed on it. She said she forgave whatever had been said in anger, and that what mattered now was moving forward, and that we should forgive each other and never speak of it again. Never speak of it again. My Aunt Rosalie set the tin box on the table. The room changed temperature. My mother looked at the little painted chapel on the lid, and I watched her recognize it. Rosalie opened her notebook and read it out loud in her church voice, which is slow and even and does not shake. She read the dates. She read the amounts. April of 2023, $100. May, $100. Christmas, $250. She read for almost a minute, and nobody interrupted her. And by the end of it, the numbers had stopped sounding like numbers. $5,200 from her. $2,400 from Merle and Nadine, by check. $1,300 out of Jonelle's wedding account. Then she closed the book and asked one question. $8,900, Darlene. In your hand, in her name. Where did it go? My mother did not miss a beat. You gave it to me, she said. I helped my children with it. What's the difference? Jonelle made a small sound and grabbed her mother's hand under the table. My mother needed one person to take her side. Anyone. And the one who stood up was my sister. Brooke got to her feet with both hands flat on the edge of the table because her hands were shaking and she needed somewhere to put them. Every word on that paper is true, she said. I checked. God help me, I checked all of it. She said she had never seen $1 of anybody's help. Not from Rosalie, not from Merle, not from Jonelle. She said that for 4 months she thought her parents were covering her rent out of savings, and that she found out at Easter, from a photograph, that it had been her sister the whole time, and the whole family had been told the opposite. Then Merle turned to Colton and asked him straight out whether he'd known. My brother is not a good liar. He looked at his plate. He said, twice. And then it came out of him in pieces. That he'd been in the kitchen at Thanksgiving. That he'd heard her on the phone with Nadine. That he hadn't been sure what it meant. Nobody at that table needed him to finish. The silence that came after was the longest I have ever sat in. You could hear the chest freezer running in the garage. My mother broke it. She stood up so fast the candle flames leaned, and she brought her hand down flat on the table, and out of her came the truest thing she has ever said to me. Everything I told them, I told for this family. The story kept us fed. The story kept us fed. 56 years later, in her own dining room, my mother said her mother's sentence out loud. My father closed his eyes. Rosalie put her hand on the lid of the tin box and left it there. Nobody yelled after that. That's not how it went. It got quiet and practical, which was worse for her. Merle said that from now on, if anybody in this family needs help, it goes straight to the person who needs it. And he said it like a man reading a rule off a wall. Rosalie did not ask for her $5,200 back. She asked for one thing. Pay Janelle back first. She's saving for a wedding. And my mother, with the room gone against her, turned to me. She had one card left, and she played it. Vesta, sweetheart, let's just put all of this behind us and start over. There it was, the door back to the old room. All I had to do was take it, and be the one who fixed it. And by Sunday I would be forgiven for something I hadn't done. I stood up. From now on, I said, I'm only in stories I can sign. Then I left, while the chicken was still hot. Brooke caught me on the porch, under the yellow bulb, out of breath. She asked me 4 words. When's your flight? I told her the date. My sister nodded once and said, I'll drive you. Here is what the next week actually looked like, because I think the aftermath is the part people get wrong. Nobody was ruined. Nobody moved away. There was no scene at a church. What happened to my mother was quieter than that. Within 4 days, the women of the family had a new group chat. Spear Cousins. Rosalie started it, and Nadine and Jonelle were in it, and my mother was not. She still had her old chat with 23 people in it, and she still posted her prayers there, and fewer people answered them. The invitations thinned out. A birthday she wasn't asked to. A cookout she heard about after. For a woman whose whole power was being the first to know, that was the sentence. She wasn't punished. She just lost her audience. My father did something he had not done in 43 years. He acted first. He sold the riding mower he'd spent the winter rebuilding, the good one with the new deck he'd been saving for spring, and he drove the cash over to Jonelle himself, $1,300, in an envelope, at her front door. He told her he was sorry it took so long, and he did not explain, and he did not stay. There's an empty rectangle on the garage floor now where that mower used to sit, in the clean concrete, with the oil stains around the outside of it. The rest of the $8,900 has not been paid back. My mother doesn't have it. She never did. Colton found out fast that the tap had been turned off. Nobody was slipping him anything anymore. He sent me one last text in the middle of the night. Mom's BP is through the roof, beasts of you. Hope Ireland is worth it. I blocked his number. I didn't announce it. I didn't tell anyone. It took one thumb and about 2 seconds. And then my brother was somebody I used to hear from. Then, on the 12th of May, my sister paid her own rent. She was 12 days late, and she paid the $200 fee out of her own pocket from wedding season hours at the floral counter, and Earl Dobbins sent her a receipt with one word on it, the way he does. Received. She posted a picture of it in Spear Family Table. Rents paid. Late, and by me. Thanks for teaching me, V. That was the only public apology anybody in my family ever made, and it never used the word sorry, and it is the only one I would have believed. 2 days later, a card came in the mail from my mother. Lilies on the front. Inside, in gold script, it said, Families Forgive, and under that she had signed her name. That was all. No apology. Not one line in her own handwriting. I put it in a drawer. I didn't tear it up, and I didn't write back. Some doors you don't slam. You just stop standing in front of them, waiting. I want to be clear about what it cost, because I don't think winning is the right word for any of this. I lost Sunday dinners. I lost my brother. I lost the sound of my mother's voice in my life. And I did not know until it was gone how much of my week had been shaped around it. 2 relatives have kept a polite distance from me ever since, the way people do when they'd rather not pick. And my savings account, the real one, the emergency one, is nearly empty. What I got was a sister standing up at a table, a father who acted once, an aunt who is now family in a way she wasn't before, and a flight nobody was allowed to postpone. The night before I left, I took the teal envelope out of the closet and emptied it into my travel wallet. 20 months to fill it. One family to almost empty it. The envelope was flat, and for the first time, it being empty meant it was finished. Brooke pulled up 15 minutes early on Sunday morning, the 17th of May. At the airport, she put something in my hand at the curb. A disposable camera, 27 exposures, yellow plastic, the kind you buy at a drugstore counter. 1 true picture a day, she said. That's the whole rule. We've had enough of the other kind. We hugged at the doors for about 3 seconds longer than we ever had. Neither of us cried. It was close. 6 weeks earlier, I had been sitting in the chair by my mother's kitchen doorway, getting up for the rolls. Louisville to Chicago, Chicago to Dublin overnight. A bus west in the morning, and then another one. And by late afternoon, a road that ran along the edge of the country with stone walls on both sides of it. Doolin was smaller than the postcard. Everything is. The workshop was 11 strangers and a woman who told me on the second day that I had a good eye for light on hard surfaces, which is what 11 years of loading docks will do for you. Near the end of that last week of May, I walked out to the cliffs by myself in the evening. The wind came off the water hard enough to lean on. The grass was flat and wet. The sea went white against the black at the bottom. Exactly the way it had on a postcard a man gave me in a different life. I took a picture with my phone. Then I opened Spear Family Table, and I posted it, with no caption. That was the last message I have ever sent in that chat. Rosalie put a heart on it. Nobody else said anything, and nothing else needed to be said. That night she texted me privately, "Your daddy pressed that paper in his Bible. Psalms. He said that's where the sad songs are allowed to live." Back at the guest house there was a lamp on the nightstand and my spiral notebook in my bag, the one that gave up a page in my mother's dining room. The torn edge is still ragged. The notebook still works. So does a family, I think, with a page missing. I opened it and I wrote one line. Day 1. Nobody signed for this trip but me. For 11 years I kept the ledger for those people. Every dollar, every deposit, every roof and furnace and deductible, recorded by me, spent by somebody else. That night I closed the ledger and I wrote the ending myself. If you know a woman who keeps paying because she's the one who can, send her this. And subscribe. Because in this family, and maybe in yours, there is always one more story waiting to be told truthfully, for once. Being the one who can pay is not the same as being the one who owes. It took me 37 years and one torn page to learn the difference.